Greetings, viewers. I'm not a doctor, but if I were a doctor, I'd diagnose this as not fucking normal. This spent quite a bit of time in my bin, I'm sorry to say. I normally am not this tardy, but I can only plead extenuating circumstances, specifically fear. This is an episode about sexual Harry Kim. Yes, Harry. A man whose lists of traits and delvings into this topic are like a cross between a fetish catalog and The Shining. Harry has no character growth throughout Voyager, no. The reason for that is that we do not find out information that broadens his character. We are told things we wish we could forget. Harry is like Mount Everest to psychiatrists. And you may balk, but if you do, you have not seen the things I have seen. Let's talk about, just as one example, Harry becoming obsessed with a hologram. Oh, sure, you might say, we've seen that from others throughout Trek. But Harry takes it so far, he actually tries to learn how to purge himself of all emotions in anticipation. Now think about that. Even Harry is afraid of the consequences of him taking things too far. He's going to wind up skinning one of the crew or something. Or that maybe he's going to wind up taking the hologram thing to the next level of insanity, creating a girlfriend who's 8 feet tall with a saddle on her back for him to ride around on, and breasts like pumpkins that lactate gin mixers, and has the face of his dad. The sexual mind of Harry Kim makes the color out of space look like the Berenstain Bears meet Santa Bear. Alright, let's move into this episode, gentle viewer, rum in hand. One does not simply walk into Mordor, one gets his ass torn back first. In fact, in keeping with that theme, we meet the aliens of the week, whose ship is made entirely out of old beer kegs. Harry's soon making out with an alien chick, and that shit starts to happen from before, and I really can only share some wise advice my grandfather once gave me. Boy, never put your dick in something that lights up. We plunge onward as Janeway explains that they're helping the Varro fix their warp systems, but is being obstructed by this guy, Japek, played by Charles Rocket of Max Headroom, and is playing through yet another Kenneth Biller story for us, and thus comes across like the villain in an Adam Sandler movie. He questions everything that Janeway seems to be doing, implying all of it might have an ulterior motive. Wonder where you get a crazy idea like that, huh? While they're all busy working on fixing the ship, Harry's still with Neon Girl. He's in his typical post-coital state, namely, overcome with shame and anxiety. To emphasize his Freudian nature, his mumblings include things like breach, go in, and multiple uses of the word violate, until she orders him to come back to bed, and, well, naturally he mopes back over there. Then, realizing the tests have started, he gets so frustrated he tries to put on her uniform. Man, Harry's so pathetic that Daddy Longlegs with all their legs pulled off feels sorry for him.
You don't understand. If I'm not at my post,
you'll be executed.
I should be so lucky. So the test goes poorly, and the ship starts to crack up a little bit. As we learn, the ship is about as strong as wet pasta. On the way back, Tom points out that he can tell what Harry did, and then proceeds to make fun of him for being as absolutely screwed up as he is. To add insult to injury, apparently it's implied that she, doesn't have the equipment to have sex like a human, but it all worked out in a way left up to our imaginations. Our poor, terrified imaginations. At what point did Voyager writers simply throw up their hands and decide that they'd written Harry into the role of maladjusted sexual deviant and just decided they were going to roll with it? I'd really like to know. Now, I know what some of you probably want to say. Come on, SF Debris, give it a rest. You're reaching. To which I have two things to say. First, you can call me Chuck. We're all friends here. And I'm fully aware that as a personal name, SF Debris sounds like the secret identity of a Silver Age DC villain. The second thing is, take a good look at all the episodes where Harry is prominent in the first 3 seasons, until they plan to kill him off. And that's easy because there are so few. Emanations, which is probably the safest, unless you think Harry has a mummification fetish, which would be absolutely vanilla for him. Non Sequitur, where he decides that he'd rather be in the Delta Quadrant with Tom than back home with his horny fiancée. The shoot, besides having Harry be in prison, we see him spooning with Tom. Now, I only bring those two up because it shows that Tom's comment that Harry goes after that which he should not or does not think he can have is the way he operates. Harry wanting to have sex with Tom is not the problem. It's that it's part of Harry's long pattern of being like a dog chasing a car that has no idea what to do once it catches it. See issues related to 7 of 9 for proof of that. The thaw, which we've covered in all his Freudian ways. Alter ego, that's the hologram one. Favorite son, alien chick that states that it wants to breed with him, only later to surround and beat him with large phallic objects. None of these are hyperbole. These are accurate descriptions of how the writers approach Harry Kim. As a man who has a relationship with male sexuality that could only have been conceived by a spiteful lesbian nun. Oh, and how are they going to have Harry die? The piece de resistance? Tentacle hente, of course. Domo arigato, Mr. Maeda. Harry quickly calls Tal up on her HD TV, and they bullshit while Tom covers up for his sloppiness and later warns him. And of course, it wouldn't be a messed up sex episode without a guest appearance by Seven dressed in her typical discreet attire. Look at my tits! Look at my ass! My tits and my ass, my tits and my ass, my tits. La 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 la! Harry admits to Tom how serious this is, comparing it to touching an open plasma conduit. He doesn't add, with my penis, because some things are just understood. During his work with Seven, he then decides to ask her about love, and as someone who went through puberty in a vat and sees emotions as something that happens to other people, probably could offer real insight.
An attraction based on sexual desire, one that facilitates procreation.
I guess I'm asking the wrong person.
No! Harry, we are a third of the way through this episode, and you honestly make me embarrassed for you. You are actually making me feel bad making fun of you, like I'm just pushing over a blindfolded fat kid at this point. Yet you seem to just steam on ahead as if you were socially brain dead. It's like somebody took out all the wiring in your head to deal with other human beings and has suddenly replaced it with a collection of amateur vor fiction and the Lenny Small Guide to Picking Up Women. And just when you think things can't get worse for Harry, we discover he's picked up an STD. It manifests itself by making his skin light up. Because the only thing more embarrassing and obvious would be a group of minstrels following him around. He has gonorrhea! Things get even worse as the doctor prepares to initiate shipwide quarantine in response to what he perceives as a potential plague, and Harry has to convince him that that's not necessary, and gradually admit to what happened. He's dragged before Janeway so she can read him the riot act.
There's a reason you took a semester of interspecies protocol at the Academy. There's also a reason why the handbook on personal relationships is 3 centimeters thick.
Indulge me a moment, because that struck me as odd. First, how often in the TNG era do we see Starfleet rules and regulations as a physical book rather than just in a computer? And ask yourself, what's the point of a guide for a spur-of-the-moment thing that is the size of a small phone book? How many ways to say, don't have sex with aliens unless it's safe, are there? Is it full of testimonials? This is Paul. Paul wasn't careful, you see. Now his dick looks like a Slim Jim. The other thing I figure is that it's handed out to everyone with, don't have sex with aliens unless it's safe on one page, and on the opposite, if you feel like doing it anyway, put your cock in here and slam the book shut. Repeat as needed. Anyway, Janeway is deeply unhappy with Harry's complete inability to do the safety dance, as it interferes with her plan to get Varro technology in return for her apparent benevolence. So she gives him a formal reprimand that will hurt his career and tells him he has to break up with his girlfriend. One of the questions asked is, why does she react even more harshly here than usual? You know, compared to all of the other people who have gotten into trouble, why has she come down so hard on poor Harry? After all, it wasn't that long ago that being made an ensign and a month's incarceration was Tom's punishment for disobeying orders in order to launch a terrorist attack on aliens. Well, all Harry did was follow Kirk's example. What's more, we've already seen in the series characters having sex with aliens, and we have also seen characters violate Janeway's orders, none of which resulted in such a severe reaction. Why come down on Harry so hard? The answer is obvious. When you're evil, you have to stay in practice. So usually once you feel yourself backsliding, like Janeway was doing by helping these people, even if it is part of her evil scheme, you do something cruel to a nearby minion, so she takes it out on Harry. It's quite common. the Emperor in Star Wars, realizing he'd just done all that nice shit for one of his minions that screwed up, messes around with him. Where's my wife? Oh, you killed her. I did? Absolutely, a gullible deep-fried bastard. No! Megatron's actually installed an alarm in himself so that if he starts having pure and happy thoughts, he can be reminded of the need to be evil and cruel.
You disgust me.
Chakotay even has to comment on it himself, and Janeway's casual cruelty is completely on display as she talks about it, even though Chakotay points it out it's overreacting. Just watch her.
A formal reprimand for being intimate with a young woman?
I know it seems a little extreme, but I wanted to leave a lasting impression.
Probably just like the lasting impression she's left on most of the Delta Quadrant so far. I always feel for the guys doing special effects, matte paintings, production design, who work their hearts out to do their job right, only to have it in a bad episode so that all people will remember is that it was that stupid one where Harry was glowing. I'm sure you could say the same about others, but these are the people who have the least control over the final product, but their work always has to be up to snuff or people will laugh at it. The opening shot of the Varro ship, for instance, was a nice achievement, and it's sad it had to be in such a crap episode like this. Well, anyway, something else that's tragic follows. Really, you will not believe what is about to happen. Neelix makes one of two appearances in this episode. He reports a situation to Tuvok, indicates some things he's found within the mess hall, shows both careful consideration and the exercise of judgment on what priorities are, and follows up by examining ship plans to see if this is suspicious behavior, and only then finding Tuvok and explaining it to him directly. In other words, we have a first. An episode in which Neelix actually does something but is neither annoying nor incompetent. Wow. The only thing I can figure is that Harry has used up this episode's supply of shame and there was none left over for Neelix. Anyway, turns out Neelix's detective work has uncovered a stowaway from the Varro.
Care to tell us how you got here?
Through a docking port.
Your entry would have triggered an intruder alert.
Your technology is easy to circumvent.
Hell yeah, we once saw the bridge locked up by the ship's cook, and it wasn't Steven Seagal. Our stowaway reveals that he's one of a large number of people who wish they weren't on their ship anymore. Kind of like Voyager, I guess. And some of them are willing to use violence if necessary. Now, you have a functioning brain, do you not? So I'll leave it to you to guess who's going to be one of the higher-ups in that organization. Yep, the girl that Harry needs to break up with, which he starts but does not finish. Yeah, Harry's going to try to have a hidden affair. Again. Meanwhile, the hull breach problem with the Varro ship is spread to Voyager, and it turns out there's duranium-eating microbes that... What's the one in the middle doing? Is he humping the armor? Good God, even the viruses are screwing things this episode. What happens next shows what happens when you overreact. Harry finishes his repair work early, so he takes a shuttle and Tala and heads away for some quality time. Why? Well, think about it. He's already screwed. A formal reprimand for sexual behavior, something we have never seen on any Trek episode before or since. Well, maybe it was just simple sex. What? And he got a formal reprimand for that? Forget it. I had sex with 3 aliens on the way to my desk. This guy was probably masturbating in front of preschoolers or something. Have him scrubbing out plasma conduits on an asteroid far away from children. Why follow Janeway's orders when things can't get any worse for Harry, huh? And just an observation, as we see him snuggling with Tal here, Harry manages to smile quite a bit and reveal two things. First, Harry doesn't smile very much, because it's only here that I'm noticing the second. Harry cannot smile without looking really uncomfortable, like somebody just told a bad joke and he's trying to spare their feelings. But that's not what's happening. This, ladies and gentlemen, this is as close as Harry Kim will ever get to knowing what joy is. It's an odd sensation of not being completely miserable. Happiness? Yes, that's the feeling when someone stops beating you long enough to catch your breath, right?
As they explore Nebula, Harry laments being the perfect Starfleet officer, listing all of his credentials. And yet, if you were in the U.S. Navy, you'd be a full lieutenant by now. The only one who answers to Harry is someone who seems to think that because he's got a job on the bridge, he must know what's going on.
Of course, it's just one part of the overall presentation that TNG-era Trek really was as non-military as Gene wanted, since it's got an officer structure like you might find if you started your own club. Anyway, before you can say deep personal shame, Harry gets caught by Tuvok, and just in time for Histrionic Theater Productions' presentation of Debate Pointless Issues to us. The director attempts to shoot the magic meeting room scene in a different way, which is good, but I think a tip for aspiring artists is never block a dramatic scene so it looks like your actor is playing duck, duck, goose with his adversaries. Anyway, after Japek declares Harry is Goose, Tal explains that she wants to dismantle the ship because then each beer keg can be its own ship and they can fly off to wherever they want. Oh, and to show Harry can really pick 'em, Tal cared more about this than the likely event that this process was going to get people killed, just so it would please a small portion of their population. After the meeting, Janeway then orders Harry confined to sickbay, as the disease is what's causing him to question her orders. So just how much it affects him, Harry storms onto the bridge after her, and for the first time ever, finally stands up for himself. Which would be dramatic if this didn't come across as a mother and her teen son arguing. It's also confused because, while it tried to be clever by its title of the disease, since it refers to Harry's STD and that Seven called love a disease, it now flounders because while Harry is insisting he's doing this out of genuine love and it should be treated as genuine love, the episode has already established that this bonding is a disease, and so refusing treatment is not the same as the heartbreak of losing someone. That's like thinking that somebody who doesn't believe in abortion shouldn't have their tapeworms removed. And if you question that, remember, Harry wasn't even slightly emotional when he decided to leave his fiancée a non sequitur. Yet here, he's gone all batshit crazy over being away from Tal. Poor Libby. If Harry really is your true love, you aimed very low and settled for very little. Harry's lame attempt at an Emmy speech is interrupted by the explosive decompression of the ship made of pasta, and wouldn't you know it, the docking clamps on Voyager have now gone offline, so they can't get free. But this is just a pre-commercial tension grabber, because as soon as we come back, Tom has fixed it, and they're about ready to leave when Harry says they should stay and extend their structural integrity field around the Varro ship to buy them time to evacuate the decompressing sections caused by his terrorist girlfriend. But Tuvok points out it would put Voyager at risk to do so. It's well known that editing is one of those parts of film or television that people will only notice when it's either extremely brilliant, like in Jaws, or really badly done. The same kind of thing I think applies to cinematography. As you can imagine, this falls under the badly done. The camera chooses to start across the room and quickly zoom in towards Harry, only to go to the other side of the room and quickly zoom onto Tuvok. It looks very cheesy in a story that has already reached nacho level by now. Well, they do it and it works, and now the dissidents can fly off and do their own thing. So Harry comes over and says goodbye to Tal, because even though they're emotionally bonded and his career's in the crapper, he's got to get back to his one true love, no matter how impossible that might seem, as he pines away for Libby, because, damn it, there's nothing gay about this. And even though Tal states that she's taken some kind of medication to help, Harry's declining treatment, and Janeway says the doctor can't force him. She sits down and pretends to have a heart-to-heart, announcing two things. She's much more protective of Harry than anybody else, and that the formal reprimand that will leave him unable to do more than clean toilets at distances greater than 100 yards from children is staying. Yeah, those two things go together. Just when you think it's over, it's time for the coda. Neelix makes his other appearance just to quietly say he's leaving. I'm really shocked that even though Harry is clearly miserable and Neelix has always insisted on inflicting his personality on such people, he can actually recognize that Harry wants to be alone. Either that or there's a ship-wide mandate not to try to cheer Harry up. Let's not discount that. But Seven shows up and... screw it. Let's just get out of here. The post-episode follow-up. Kudos to Michael Taylor's scriptwriting for managing to give us a Neelix presence without actually achieving a stupid Neelix moment. For this, I will give the episode a +1 bonus to its final score, and God knows it needs it. Final score for the disease is 3 out of 10. This episode doesn't know whether it wants to be a story about love, maternal instincts, coming of age, so it just settles on being crap. The drama is unintentionally funny, the comedy is actually just embarrassing, and the episode's approach to Harry's situation has all the feeling of a 50s era case of a girl accidentally becoming pregnant and being punished and ashamed for it. Janeway's overreaction also is particularly amusing when you place this episode in historic context. Because while they were filming Janeway's rant here, large numbers of Hollywood personalities were defending then-President Bill Clinton with regards to improper sexual behavior. The only thing that makes any sense to me is that Hollywood believes that sex is a natural and wonderful thing between any two people, so long as one of them isn't Harry Kim. They're probably right.